Good morning and welcome back. It is now June 3rd. It is a cooler, windier morning here this morning. We do have some decent temperatures forecast for today, but it is supposed to be quite windy this week, so we'll see how that goes. As you can see behind me, I'm in a barley field here and things are coming along pretty quick. Let's take a look and see what staging we're at now. As you can see here, we're well into herbicide timing now, so these plants are tillering out really good. So this guy's got two primary tillers going out. Well, there's primary tiller, secondary tiller, another secondary tiller starting. So we're definitely coming along pretty good here now, and those nodes are just beginning to rise. So we are in stem elongation now, although just barely started. So good time for herbicide application now, as well as, consider throwing in something like manipulator, something along those lines as a PGR if you're on irrigation to reduce lodging. I don't know if we're going to bother on dry land this year. We've gotten off to a good start, but she's already getting dry. Here's a good field for explaining how to look for cutworms and scout for cutworm damage in canola. This canola has been seeded for well over a week now. We've got decent emergence, just enough so you can just barely start to see rows. So this is a good time to get in here and start looking. And what you're going to be looking for is gaps in the rows with plants that have been chewed off. So I'm not seeing anything like that here, but canola is a very easy to dispose of plant, so cutworms can quite easily at this stage just completely eat those cotyledons right off. Or if you're not there quick enough, if those cotyledons are laying on the soil surface on a breezy day, they'll blow away or they'll dry out and desiccate and you won't even see them. But for the most part, I'm thinking this field, these gaps are mostly just caused by dry seed. So as you can see, this is a sandy field. Oh yeah, there was a seed there, so we do still have some dry seed. There's one still underneath the surface, so we are still emerging here. But basically that's what you're going to be looking for, is just gaps in the rows. And if your seed is treated and you're seeing 2 or 3 plants chewed off, you might find a cutworm nearby that is limp, not doing a whole lot. Well, he's probably been controlled by the pesticide on the seed. No need to worry about him. He is done. If you are not treated for cutworms and you're having cutworm problems, and really about the only thing you can do is spray something along the lines of Pounce or Coragen in order to get them under control. But if that's the case, you probably should have bought treated seed. Well, we definitely have some flea beetle feeding going on in this field. You can see some of these little cotyledons are getting nailed pretty hard. So some of these little guys now are over threshold for damage. So we're going to have to come in here, hit this with some Pounce, get these flea beetles under control. You can see some of these larger ones are starting to grow through it here already. We've got true leaves coming out, but some of these guys that are just emerging are getting hit pretty hard. I just found another bird nest, 5 nice little speckled eggs in there. Once again, did not see the bird that left it, but still fun to see. Here we have a field of Nexera canola just starting to come out of the ground, mostly just in cotyledon stage. You can see we got quite a few wild oats in here, so we're going to have to come in here with a shot of glyphosate here pretty quick. It's not going to do a whole lot about this kochia that is popping up here and there, but it is what it is. I'm really starting to feel like we're coming back into drought conditions here this week. If we don't get rain pretty soon, some of these fields are going to be in real trouble. We got lots of ungerminated canola in here, and some of it is seeded, up to 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch deep. There's a little guy right there that hasn't germinated. So we got to dig down, a good 1.5 inches now to hit any sort of moisture really in the seed row at all. Yeah, right about there is where there's decent amount of moisture. We're pretty much 2 inches deep, so we're gonna need some rain. Here we have a field of 0-till corn, and things are looking all right here. We are starting to see a few plants starting to come up here, so that is great to see. We're going to need to irrigate this here pretty soon, I think, because we're going to run out of moisture really quick. But there is a lot that is just barely poking through or is going to be really, really close to emerging at the moment here, like this guy here. Here in this patchy winter wheat, we just sprayed On Deck from Corteva last week, and we're having pretty good effect on a lot of these weeds. You can see here we got a whole patch of poverty weed and some buckwheat and some lamb's quarters. It's all going down pretty good. The kochia is being a little bit slower to show it, but I'm hoping that we'll see more symptoms show up the next few days. You can see this one's burning off, but this one's not quite so much. So we'll see how things go in the next week. Well, it's another really windy day here today. I'm down by McGrath. There was 0 rain here last night, whereas Lethbridge and kind of north got about ½ an inch of rain last night, which was very well timed for some of the canola fields that are just emerging. But down here, I'm taking a look at this fall rye, and you can see we are at head emergence. I don't think there's really any flowering or anything going on in here yet. Looks like we need a little bit more time for that, but we do have excellent head emergence. So we are going to be coming into these fields, hitting this with Miravis to reduce the risk of ergot. So we have enough head emergence now. We're going to go in and hit this in the next few days, once the wind dies down anyways. As you can see, we are having some significant soil erosion. Today it is turning into a very, very windy day. The field that you can see blowing has been seeded to wheat, and when I was in there last week, we were only like emerging to 1 leaf. So I'm going to say that we're probably going to have some damage out there. It's probably a little too early to assess at the moment. But whenever you get sandblasting action like that, it can be really rough on crops. Canola and corn in particular can really get hurt bad by sandblasting, but we'll have to see how this wheat is going to look after this is all over. Here in this very wind-blown canola field, we're definitely seeing some leaf damage. A lot of this is from flea beetles feeding on the underside of the leaves here, so they're weakening the leaves. And then combined with the high winds and the plants flopping around, we're getting a lot of leaf tearing and breakage. So we're gonna have to come in here. This is probably the worst field for flea beetles I've seen yet. I've been lucky so far, but some of these plants are getting hit pretty hard. So we're gonna come in here, hit this with the flea beetle rate of pounce and get these guys under control. Wednesday morning now, and finally a day that's not an absolute hurricane, so I'm out here to do one of my small plot trials today. So I'm going to do the in-crop application on this, which means it's going to get another shot of ATP and Nature's Aid, as well as I'm going to throw in a new plot. I'm going to try some of this Pro-Liant. So this is actually the opposite of your general growth regulator, such as a manipulator. This is a pure gibberellic acid, so it should generate growth pretty quickly. I have seen results in the field from it before, but it'd be neat to see if it shows up in small plots. But anyways, let's dig up some roots and see how things are looking. Well, to keep things fair, I've taken a shovelful from the same location at each plot, so let's take a look at how they stack up. Here we have Humaterra, which is a granular applied at seeding. Here we have our control, so this is nothing. Here we have the Nature's Aid system, which was basically just the pre-burn treatment so far. Here we have our Phycoterra, which looks like the best here. The same number of plants in all of these, and this has larger root mass than the other ones as far as I can tell. Here we have our ATP nutrition system, so this would be the ATP pre-seed, and here we have our combo product, so this is a combination of Humaterra as well as Phycoterra, so double Terra. Well, here we have a really nice field of winter wheat. This field is mostly in penultimate to flag leaf stage, and we're looking okay, but you can see we're a little bit off colored kind of throughout the field, and that's just because these leaf tips are pretty well damaged. They really got the snot kicked out of them on Tuesday in all of that heavy wind, so that leaves them susceptible to disease. So you can already see we got tan spot and stuff like that starting to hit this field and get into those damaged leaf tissues. You can see some of the leaf tips are pretty much totally burned or tattered off from the wind. So we'll probably try to come in here with the fungicide in the next little while and get these leaves protected. Here in this 3-leaf barley, got a good opportunity to show the difference between lamb's quarters and red root pigweed side by side. You can see this guy here, this slightly larger one is lamb's quarters. You can see the more mealy texture of the leaf, kind of got that silver reflection, and when you flip the leaves over, it's still a nice kind of mealy green color on the bottom. This is red root pigweed. It's a little bit smaller right now because it tends to germinate a little bit later. You can see a little bit of like purpley red right around those leaf margins, and when you flip those leaves over, they are bright, kind of a purpley red indigo or whatever you want to call it, with a red colored stem. As these plants get larger, the differences get a little bit easier to tell. The pigweed itself has a much rounder leaf, whereas the lamb's quarters will have more of a serrated leaf margin. Big change in the safflower in the last week. You can see we got beautiful, nice rows and lots of growth. We're putting out lots of new leaves. This stuff is doing really well. It's going to really like the hot weather this week, and it's going to really start to take off now. Here in this barley, we do have a little bit of disease starting to develop. Disease conditions have been pretty favorable for certain diseases like this one here. So this is scald starting to develop in barley. Once it gets a little bit more developed, it will look like cigarette burns on the leaves. You know, this might potentially be scald starting right here on this leaf as well, or it could be just blotch. You can just see a couple little tiny spots on there. So have to keep an eye on this one. Oh, Friday morning here now. Just had a little tiny bit of a rain shower, but I'm out here checking a couple of canola fields, just checking on flea beetle pressure here before the weekend, and things are looking pretty good so far. So with that, I will see you next week.